Hey, welcome everybody. Aaron West and I were just doing a little victory lap about how cool everybody who's come today to donate their time to the payments ecosystem to help foster disruption, actionable takeaways, and safety and soundness for our payments ecosystem. Aaron, my friend, thank you so much for coming. We're wonderfully lucky that our schedules just had this little teeny weeny needle of time that we could actually get on a call together. Aaron's title, Scandemic, What Can We Do About Pig Butchering? I think everybody on the call should know who you are, but for those who do not, for now, Deputy District Attorney in Santa Clara County, California. Aaron West has a passion for assisting victims of online fraud. And I said for now, Aaron will be very soon going full tilt 100% into Operation Shamrock, of which she will speak. But for now, I will give you a brief snippet of who she is, and I'll jump off and let you take the stage. Aaron has served as Deputy District Attorney in Santa Clara County, California for 25 years, 8 of which as a prosecutor for React, an elite high-tech investigative force that has taken down international SIM swappers, disrupted fraudulent call centers abroad, and is now actively working to combat the romance investment scam known as pig butchering. My friend, take it away. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to give you such kudos for putting together what an all-star lineup this is today. It's a really, really fantastic group of speakers, and I feel super honored to be among them. I'm going to share my screen with you, and it should be up. It should be up. Perfect. You guys can see it now. So what I'm here to tell you is that we have reached crisis level. I am no longer joking around about this, if I ever was, but what I want to tell you is that I cannot handle the number of victims that are reaching out to me on a daily basis that have been absolutely decimated by scams. Not just pig butchering, but every other kind of scam. We are deluged by scam attacks on the daily, and we've got to do something about it in a big way. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how big the problem is, and then I want to talk to you about some potential solutions, because I think there are solutions to this. So yes, we are at crisis level, but let me see if I can get this working and moving forward. But what if we could? What if we could has always been my motto. And what if we could innovate our way out? So I know that I'm talking to people today who are thinkers and doers and are willing to look at this crisis in a different way, because make no bones about it, we are in a silent war. War has been strategized and is being perpetrated against us, and we are not rising to the defense at all. And we need to change that. And we need to start thinking about this in ways that we have not thought about it before. So I want to walk you through some basic pig butchering tactics. And the reason why I'm walking you through them, even though you might already know a lot about pig butchering, is because it's important wherever you work in this ecosystem to know the hallmarks of pig butchering, so that when a victim comes your way, and I get this question every single time I present, and the question is, I think my mom is in a scam, or a customer appears to me to be in a scam, how can I get them out of it? Well, the first thing I'll tell you is that we need to lead with empathy. These victims have fallen prey to sophisticated psychological tactics that are being used against them. So we're not going to turn them around by angrily telling them this is a scam. How can you not know you're in a scam? That is not going to work. What might work, according to the victims I have spoken to on a calculated basis of trying to understand how we can fix this, is if we lead with empathy and if we know the hallmarks of these particular scams, so that we can repeat them back to the victims and say, did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? I've heard about a scam that's like that. So the way these scams start out, I know you've received texts that look like this. And what they're doing is they're basically just trying to solicit interest. And they're coming at us on text. They're coming at us on, we've spoken to scammers inside the compounds who tell us, I'm in a Facebook group of people that I believe to be moneyed. I just look for groups I can join where people seem to have money, and I go after those people one by one. So, so what these are is just basic ways of trying to loop someone in. And as you sit here, you might think, I would never fall for that. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter. The point is that people are falling victim to this, tens of thousands of people every day. And the reason why is we are really experiencing an epidemic of loneliness worldwide. As we've come out of COVID, we've really not ever regained the communities that we once had. And as a result, people are at home alone and willing to engage online. Well, what's going to happen when you respond to those texts is the next thing you're going to get is a picture of an attractive person. And this is Jessica. She'll tell you her name's Jessica, and here she is at the gym. And what Jessica will do next is she will suggest to you that you move that conversation to WhatsApp. And the reason why she wants to do that is that she knows now, scammers know that they are being actively hunted on LinkedIn and Meta and dating apps. And so they want to move off that platform as quickly as possible so that they can conduct their dirty business in private and away from the prying eyes of those of us that are looking for them. This is one of the hallmarks of pig butchering cases, is that they will move that conversation to WhatsApp. And so this is one of the things that you can talk to a victim about in terms of, I've heard this, did this happen to you? But they've been coached and they'll have a reason, they'll have an explanation for why all this happened. But we need to be armed with what this scam is and how it's developing. Guaranteed, Jessica will play golf and she will do yoga and she will talk about that. These scammers are operating from scripts. They know how to talk to a 30-year-old software engineer, like my first victim. They know how to talk to a 50-year-old woman with 2 teenage boys, and they sure know how to talk to a 70-year-old man who's lost his wife. They have scripts that are tested and true, and they work. And they work over and over and over again to create the most lucrative business opportunity we have ever seen worldwide. And the business is straight up, let's steal the world's money. That is the business. And it's being conducted on an industrial level. So the scammers are selling a dream to the victims. They are selling a athletic, educated, well-to-do lifestyle. They are going to share pictures of nice vacations and picking up a nice new car, and they are going to sell our victims over an extended period of time. It's a long con. They're going to sell a dream of a romantic, lovely relationship that our victim had always been in search of. And during that time, they're doing 2 things. One, they're developing trust, because ultimately they want to be the one person that our victim can trust. They will develop a technique of isolation, and our victims will learn to trust this person above everyone else. And they are spending that time finding out where our victim keeps all their money, because that is the nature of pig butchering. It does not stop until our scammers have taken every last cent. So over this 90-day courting period, they will find out where our victims hold their money and how much is there, and if they have a 401k, a retirement account, or children's college accounts, because that's what they're after. I want to talk technically about how the money moves, because I think this is relevant to you. And when I talk about all of this, I want to encourage us all to think from the perspective of what if we could. What if we could make things happen that haven't happened before? What if we could find solutions that we did not use before? Because that's the only way out of this. We are at war, and we need to think really quickly, critically, innovatively, and come up with solutions. And that's why I welcome an opportunity to talk to people like you who just very well may have a simple solution that I don't know, because I don't work in payments. But you do, and you know where the cracks are that we could exploit to disrupt this bad behavior. So let me tell you technically how this works. The scammer will tell our victim ultimately, you know why I can afford all this? It's because I invest in cryptocurrency. And I didn't know how, but my uncle does, and my uncle taught me, and my uncle could teach you. Again, another thing that is similar in all of these. There is an uncle or an auntie that is the educator. There is a learned person that is giving the advice. That's something else that you can raise as a red flag with potential victims. So the way it works is they'll say, okay, let's just try. I know you're nervous about this, but let's try it with a small amount of money. And for a lot of people, that small amount of money is $5,000. They will go to their bank and they'll take the $5,000 in US dollars and they will ask the bank to wire it to a cryptocurrency exchange. For those of you who are newish to crypto, an exchange is just like a bank for cryptocurrency. These ones I've listed here are banks that are used by our scammers in the initial stages. They will say, all right, why don't you take that $5,000 and ask your bank to wire it to Coinbase? Now, at that time, our victim will set up a Coinbase account that is in their name and that is exclusively theirs. The money still remains in our victim's hands. But what our scammer will do then is they'll say, okay, we've got to now change your US dollars into USDT. That's a cryptocurrency. It's also known as Tether. It's a stable coin, which means it's pegged to the US dollar. It's 1-to-1. It's not confusing to understand for our victims. So now they've got their Coinbase account, and in their Coinbase account, they have 5,000 US dollars, and our scammers will teach them screenshot by screenshot how to change that into Tether. And now they have 5,000 Tether or less some fees. So they have 5,000 Tether sitting in their account. And then the scammer says, okay, my uncle says this is a good day to invest it in the cryptocurrency platform. Now, our victims are novices to crypto. They don't know a lot about it. And our enemy is skilled and savvy and builds platforms that look very real. Now, I look at this platform, I don't know a lot about what a cryptocurrency investment platform looks like, but this looks pretty good to me. I don't have any reason to question it, and I sure don't because my loved one has told me this is where his or her money is. And I've seen all the nice things that person has, so I don't have any reason not to trust this. This is an important piece because a lot of people, there's a lot of trolling of victims. There's a lot of victim blaming here. And there's a lot of, oh, you just gave all your money away. Well, the fact is you didn't give your money away. What our victims did is they relied on a trusted person and they made an investment in their own future. These accounts are, they think, in their own name. They're not giving that money to anybody. They are buying into a dream that they have been sold. So they are going to now, the scammer will lead them screenshot by screenshot how to move their Tether, their USDT, into this cryptocurrency investment platform. Now, our victim will then see a beautiful dashboard that shows their 5,000 Tether and their account inside XS Coin Trade. But the fact is, it's all fictitious. This is a dummy website. It doesn't do anything. It's all fake. And the 5,000 Tether has now moved down the blockchain into the hands of our bad guys. But our victim doesn't know that. Our victim sees their 5,000. The next day becomes 6,800, then 7,500. And by the last day, or by the end of the week, now they have 10,000 Tether, $10,000. And they think, oh my God, they've got the endorphins of being in this great new relationship that's so fantastic. And then the endorphins of, and I'm also getting rich. And it's too much for any one person to bear. And so then our scammer will say, okay, well, you see that it works. My uncle says there's an opportunity this weekend if we put 200,000 in. And our victim will say, oh, that seems like a crazy number. I wasn't thinking that high. And our scammers are so smart and crafty and they know what works. And they'll say, I'll split it with you. I'll go in for 100,000, you go in for 100,000, and we'll see. Now our victim thinks, well, no way would my loved one put money at risk. So of course this is good. So together they put in their 200,000, which is really just our victim coming up with 100,000. And now they've got over $500,000 and our victim is hooked. And account by account, that scammer will lead them through, and they will not end until they've invested every last dollar into this fictitious platform. Now, here's the clincher. When our victims go to try and take money out, they are hit with this. You're required to pay 24% in taxes. Well, our victims are frustrated and they think, gosh, I didn't know about this. Well, take it out of my gains. And then the scammers will say, no, it has to be new money. And this is when things really get ugly for our victims, because they'll say, oh gosh, okay, I'll go get a home equity line. I'll go get a second mortgage. I'll get a high interest loan because I think this is just a quick flip. That I'm going to pay this money and then I'm going to get all my millions out. And when I say millions, I'm not joking. I'm here to tell you that the numbers that I see from victims are insanely high. Individual victims coming to me with losses of 800,000, 1.2 million, 1.8 million. This week I had a 2.2 million from a victim, and then he said his ex-wife was also hit for her 2.2 million. Together they lost $4.4 million. These are massive, massive numbers. And so they pay those taxes and then they see, oh, okay, congratulations, you've successfully completed your taxes. And then, oh, but now you need to pay a $10,000 account management fee, which is really crushing, because now they've got the sunk cost fallacy, meaning, well, I've already put everything I have into this, so I guess another 10,000 won't kill me. And that's what they do. Ultimately, to find out that this entire thing was a scam, and that the person that they trusted with everything they had been plotting their demise since conversation one. And it is too much for victims to bear. We are seeing suicides. We are seeing just horrific situations where victims are, family members are seeing a family member commit suicide. Then they go through their digital life after the person has passed and they come to find out, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is where my dad lost $3 million in this, and he thought he was in a love relationship. It's an unbelievable tragedy all around, and it's happening at scale. I want to talk to you a little bit about where this is happening, where this is coming from. It's coming from Southeast Asia, and it is a direct attack by Chinese organized crime. And if I had told you this 2 years ago, that would be 100% true. But I can tell you that just as we pivot to try to fight this, more and more scammers realize how lucrative this business is and want to get in on it. So now we're seeing the Yakuza. We are seeing Korean organized crime. We are seeing other international mafia get involved in this. So what we're seeing is that this is a transnational organized crime problem. This is 100% a national security threat. What we're seeing is good guys versus bad guys, and bad guys winning over and over and over. Bad guys literally running circles around us when we kind of are just starting to wake up that there's a problem here. So let's think about what this means in terms of why it's a national security issue and just how much is being lost. This slide says billions of dollars a year. One of the key issues with this is that we don't have good data to tell us exactly how much money has been lost. What we know is that we ask victims to report to the FBI online portal, IC3, and we tell them to do that. Now, that portal is not well set up to capture this information. There is no place to check a box for pig butchering or transnational organized crime. So our victims are doing their best to figure out what this is in here. And so for the most part, they're labeling this investment scam or a confidence romance scam. If we look at investment, the FBI tells us in 2023, 4.5 billion was lost. They tell us in 2023, 652 million was lost to confidence and romance. So if you add that up, you're well over $5 billion reported lost last year. But what we know is this is a particular type of crime that victims do not like to report. I can tell you, I spend time on the phone with doctors, with people in financial services, with a judge, with people who are lawyers, with people with advanced degrees. they're embarrassed and they think that they are going to look so stupid if they report this. So there's no way they're going to report it. I talked to one man in financial services. We had actually recovered some of his money and wanted to help return it to him. And he was like, I just can't have this published anywhere. I can't, I work in financial services. I will lose all my clients if they find out that I was a victim of this type of crime. So when we think about the underreporting and we think about 5 billion here, we need to look to other sources to figure out how much is the loss. I'm involved with the United States Institute of Peace. We drafted a paper and we put the loss at over $50 billion. There's a gentleman, a professor in Texas who said over 75 billion. There are other numbers that are massive numbers, but the fact is, it is a generation's worth of wealth. It is as if the baby boomers, rather than handing their inheritance down to their children, are handing it into the hands of organized crime, and that's a national security threat. When we are literally watching organized crime take our nation's wealth, we have a national security problem. It is a massive one at that. I want to talk to you a little bit about how this happened. So I want to take you back to I just tried to wipe something off my screen and it turns out it's a bird in the picture. So this is Sihanoukville, Cambodia. As you can see, generally a pretty rural location. We've got water buffalo grazing right there. And what we know is that this was a beautiful backpacking haven before Chinese organized crime rolled into town. In China, gambling is banned and cryptocurrency is banned. So Chinese gangsters moved their act to Sihanoukville, Cambodia, and they did it in a big way. They came down there and they started building these massive towers to do online gambling inside these towers. And so they built a major infrastructure there. And what you're looking at is an area called Chinatown. If you go to Sihanoukville, you'll see that it's all Chinese speaking. It's Chinese language everywhere, and you'll find 133 casinos there. There are only 150 casinos in Las Vegas. So that is what we're looking at here, is we're looking at a Chinese organized crime money laundering haven. So how does this relate to pig butchering? As COVID developed, people weren't traveling, people weren't coming to these online gambling dens or these local casinos that they had built. So they decided to pivot, and they decided to pivot to a crime they crafted called Sha Zhu Pan. And that is translated to pig butchering. The concept is that we are going to fatten up our pig, our victim, and then we are going to slaughter them and take all their money. I think about it being consuming victims from the snout to the tail and leaving nothing on the bone, because that is what they're doing. They are taking everything. It's the nature of the game. So in order to do this dirty work, they need a lot of human workforce. And so these people are crafty and organized and working in an industrial scale and doing things well. And so they build websites that look like job applications. They had an unemployment rate of 20% in Southeast Asia right after COVID. And so it was not difficult for them to find people who were interested in their fake jobs that they were advertising on the internet, saying, come work here in a beautiful live work facility. You'll get good wages and you'll live here rent free. And that was appealing. So people would apply and they would get interviews and they would take jobs. They'd arrive in Bangkok. Their passports were seized and they were bused to those towers that now were surrounded by barbed wire and with bars over the windows. They were moved into these facilities and they've become the human trafficked workforce. In this day and age, we have human slavery fueling the workforce behind all of the conversations that are happening with our victims worldwide. These victims are forced to do this work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are violently punished if they don't meet quotas. We're talking about baseball bats. We're talking about electric batons. It is a horrific situation that the United States Institute of Peace estimates at 300,000 people involved in this against their will. This is a picture that was smuggled out of a compound. It shows a human trafficked worker sitting there with dozens of phones in front of them and laptop or desktop conversations with victims. That's how this is operating. But it's not, this is Cambodia, what we're looking at right here. And you might think, well, why isn't Cambodia doing something about this? Well, because this is the most lucrative business in the history of business ever. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars that make up half the GDP of Cambodia. So you can imagine they can buy a lot of favor in the Cambodian government, and in fact they do. And that's widely reported and well known. And you don't have to look further than UNODC reports and the report of the United States Institute of Peace and local news to know that this is a major corruption problem. It's also happening at scale in Myanmar. What you're looking at here is called KK Park. It is one of the most notorious facilities that exists. And when I talk about organized crime, I'm not talking about that lightly. This is not a whodunit over there. We know that this piece of land was leased by Broken Tooth Khoi, and we know him. He is a member of the Triad. He is someone that has been previously arrested and prosecuted for this type of work. He is a known Chinese organized crime boss. And what he's done here is he's leased a piece of land in Myanmar. It's called a special economic zone. And that on that piece of land, he can conduct whatever business he wants without any kind of government oversight. And the business he is in is stealing our money. And so we need to be super concerned, because look at what KK Park was in February 2020. It was a dirt lot. That river separates Myanmar from Thailand, and that was a dirt lot for KK Park. And this is what it looked like 2 years later. So within 2 years, they went from a dirt lot to this massive infrastructure. And that is the enemy we are not even beginning to fight, that we are not even beginning to be aware of. They've got infrastructure, they've got technique, they've got workforce, they've got PhDs helping them develop tech that is years beyond ours. They have PhDs helping them run psychological techniques to take over the minds of our victims in ways we have never seen. Victims describe it as being in a cult. It is that bad. But it would be one thing if it were just one of these compounds on the river here in Myanmar, but it's dozens. Dozens of compounds filled with workers whose job 17 hours a day is to take our money. And we have literally a handful of people working on this to combat it. We've got to do better. And I'm going to give you some ideas of how we can do better. So this is it. And when I talk to my friends on the ground in Southeast Asia and I say, what does KK Park look like right now? And they'll say, construction at all of these. That's all we see, because this is the most lucrative, fastest growing, no disruption, no friction industry ever conceived. But the problem's getting bigger. And we have people who are reporting to us that this is a big problem in Laos. We knew that. Dubai, South America, it is growing, and it's going to grow in countries to which we don't have good access and good ability to make things stop. I want to talk a little bit about what this looks like if you are a victim in the United States. And the fact is, it is so bad that even Wired magazine is writing an article about how difficult it was to get help. And we know that that continues to be the case. I hear from victims all day, every day, that say, literally yesterday, I went into the police station in Downey, California, and they told me that this is outside their jurisdiction. Well, it isn't. And so I'm happy to go into the details in another conversation, but my team at REACT, at my high-tech task force, figured out, what if we could moment. There was no law that was ready to show us how to recover cryptocurrency. There was no framework for this, so we developed it. We thought, what if we could? And we came up with an innovative approach. And by December 2022, that approach worked and we had a blueprint and we were able to return $1.5 million to 8 victims. And to date, we've recovered $3.5 million for victims. And so that was great. We got some great press, but what that gave us was more victims and more victims all over the country that needed help. And their experience in law enforcement was not acceptable. They were being turned away from local law enforcement and they were reporting to federal portals and hearing nothing back. And they were agitated, frustrated, and they continue to be. I say were, but I can give you a dozen names right now who are in my mailbox from the past couple days, who are beyond frustrated. And that leads them into the hands of secondary scammers who tell them they can get their money back. So none of this is acceptable to me. And so I made it my mission to find other people, other law enforcement that were doing this work and to create a coalition. And that's what we did starting in November 2022. Today, our coalition of law enforcement is over 2,000 people. We represent all 50 states, a bunch of countries. We are working together to develop capacity so that when someone comes into local law enforcement with this problem, they are not turned away. They are not told there's nothing we can do. They are not told it goes into crypto and there's nothing we can do about it. They're not told this isn't our jurisdiction, because we have a duty to our victims. Because I'll tell you what, if these same victims came in and said somebody came into my house and stole my jewelry, our law enforcement would get into it. But what they're saying here is someone came into my computer and stole every penny I have, and law enforcement is not up for the task. That is not acceptable. And so that is what I work every day to work on. This is called the Crypto Coalition, and it is one of my proudest accomplishments as a prosecutor, bringing people together. We share information, we have webinars every month, we teach each other, and we have an annual conference that brings us all together to work better together. But what I noticed after bringing us all together at that conference is the magic of bringing together in-person can-do people who don't just want to sit and listen to a panel. They want to get their hands dirty and figure out how to fix things. And that's what I'm about. I'm a what if we could and how can we fix this? So what it occurred to me was that we needed something for pig butchering. We needed something for this transnational organized crime. And what we needed was something unprecedented and cross-industry. The nature of pig butchering is that we're not going to solve this by law enforcement alone or diplomacy alone. We need everybody. And what we need is the beginning of this. We need social media that's enabling the meeting of these people. We need telco. We need banking. We need crypto. We need law enforcement from the top to the bottom. We need diplomacy. We need NGOs, and we need victim services. Everybody has to get together to figure out how we are going to use every single tool in our arsenal to come at this every day urgently. We are in a crisis. And so it's got to be unprecedented, cross-industry, information sharing. That's how we are going to get by, is because when I realized that Meta was holding the data that could identify 7 syndicates operating in Cambodia, and I heard from my NGOs on the ground over there that they had crypto addresses that they could tie to specific compounds, it became very clear that we need to start putting these puzzle pieces together and disrupting this. This is us against them. This is good guys against bad guys. This is time to start thinking of more than just our revenue, but what is right and what is going to save the next generation. We are not kidding here about how big this is. And we're going to call it an operation against organized transnational financial crime. So the best thing to call this would be Ukisoa Tuka. No, that makes no sense at all. So let's call it Operation Shamrock. And the reason I called it that is because it is green and hopeful, and it is a I've been talking for a long time on LinkedIn that what we need to do is educate, seize, disrupt. We've got to educate potential victims. If you go to any conference, they will say, well, we need an awareness campaign. But please tell me who is running that awareness campaign. That is what we need. We need people to roll up their sleeves and say, this is what my agency can do for an awareness campaign, and we're going to start it. We need to educate law enforcement, and that's what I'm doing all day, every day. We need to educate banking. happening? That's another part of Shamrock. How do we educate our tellers on the front line, our wealth managers, about specifically what is happening and the things that are changing, that now they're going to come in and they're not going to ask for to wire that money. They're going to ask for it in cash, and they're going to hand it off to someone who's going to come to their house and pick it up. They're going to ask for cash, and they're going to convert it to gold bars, and they're going to hand that off to someone who's going to come to their neighborhood and pick it up. We've got to stay on top of what is happening. We've got to have law enforcement talking to banking, talking to social media, so that we know what's happening as it's happening. That's how we educate. We've got to seize what we can. And I am working specifically with on a great project that is going to be super helpful about how we can make even more seizures for victims. And we've got to disrupt it. And I think that's where you guys come in. You know where there is opportunity to disrupt in your industry. And you've got to be this squeaky wheel. You are on notice now of how bad this is. And you've got to look around and say, you know what? Here's something I think we can do. It is our duty to figure out how we can move this ball down the field. So what we did with Operation Shamrock is we put it into 5 working groups. And when I say working, I mean working. I mean, we are getting together with specific goals and we are doing things. We are creating an educational framework for law enforcement and for banking. We are testifying at Congress. We are for foreign policy. We are talking to Treasury and getting people sanctioned. We are writing articles and publishing things and getting the word out there. Victim Services is coming up with a softer landing for these victims. It is not acceptable for victims to be hearing nothing from law enforcement. We want to provide them with the information they need so that they have reasonable expectations about this. And there's a lot of movement that can be done in tech, and we really need to move forward on that. When I think about this was just a brainstorm in my office one day about how we can route people better. I don't need to go through it, but the point is that there's better ways to do all of this, and we need to look at it on constant. I want to show you real quick what's happening with AI, because goodness, this is scary. This is called an Instagram fan machine. It is showing you in real time what it looks like when one person is now running conversations with dozens and dozens of people at a time. You saw my original Cambodia slide where our worker had maybe 20 conversations going at a time. But imagine if you could have bots doing the conversation and bots running this. You could have bots working 24 hours a day, hundreds of conversations at a time. This is what we need to fear. This is what we need to respond in kind with. They've got great tech. We're pretty smart too, and we've got to organize and figure out how to move forward with this. And here's just an example from that. It says, this is a bot carrying on a conversation. Honestly, I don't know how to explain to you. You appear on my page many times. I think we have a special fate. This is the kind of work that is unfortunately attracting people and creating this. My friend recommended you. How are you? I want to share this as well, and this is from a platform that you might recognize, but these are the kind of ads that are being served up on our tech platforms, and that is the face of a teenager. We have got to do better, because if you think that these compounds are pig butchering only, oh no, ma'am. We are doing extortion out of there. We're doing job scams. They are working unbelievably all day, every day to figure out ways to take your money. I want to talk quickly about the elephant in the room. There is a movement to not call this pig butchering, and I will tell you why I do call it pig butchering, and I call it that with intent. I call it pig butchering because pig butchering slaps you in the face and gets you to think, God, this is vile, and also like, what is this woman talking about? Our problem is we've got a dozen different people telling you to call it a dozen different things now. Financial grooming, crypto confidence scam, and that is confusing to victims, and it doesn't allow us to know how big the scale is. And quite frankly, pig butchering is what gets you on the John Oliver show. And this is a great picture because this is my detective watching the John Oliver show. And if you haven't seen it, it's a 25-minute episode and it's fantastic. It's really, from victims to those of us in law enforcement and banking, we all agree that this is fantastic. But this is my detective watching it. And as he's watching it, he's getting solicited by a scammer. That's how ubiquitous this is. I call it pig butchering, and I I set 2 goals for myself last year, and the goal was to get on 60 Minutes, and I got myself on 60 Minutes Australia, and not myself, but the story, that's me, but the story on 60 Minutes, and to get in front of Congress and really raise the consciousness of what's happening. This doesn't stop until we get the highest levels of government involved and we get our best players activated into doing this work. So I want you to think with a what if you could attitude. I want you to join me at operationshamrock.org and opt in. And I would love to hear from you about how we can work together to combat this. So thank you so much for having me. It really is a special opportunity to be here. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Melissa. Thank you so much.
Outstanding presentation. Devastating, outstanding at the same time. You've got eyes on page of the people in the payments ecosystem who want to disrupt, who want to be as passionate as you are. To everybody listening, we will make sure that contact details are shared out to the externals, anyone who comes to the show. There's 2 really great questions sitting in the chat box. We are at time. What I will do is take them offline, get them over to your side. We can frame up the answer and then get it out to the audience. And I say they're fantastic questions because they're from 2 of our folks internal. So bravo, ladies. My friend, be safe, keep fighting. Let us know how we can partner. Like I said, the payments community is here to disrupt, and you are going to be amazed when you meet the people that we know in payments. They are awesome. They are on your side.
Can't wait. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really grateful, Melissa.
Excellent. Take care of yourself, my friend. Up next, we're going to have Kevin Lyons. So everybody jump on over to the next link. Thank you very much.